You're listening to The RealWealth Show with Kathy Fettke, the real estate investor's resource.
Welcome back to the RealWealth Show. I'm Kathy Fettke.
And I'm Rich Fettke.
And we're doing another RealWealth story, this time with a Bay Area couple celebrating their 10-year anniversary.
Yeah.
And they spent a lot of time investing in California. And then, for reasons we're going to find out on this show, they decided to also invest out of state. So we're going to find out why here on today's episode. So Janet and Joel, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for
Great
having
to
us.
see you.
So yeah, you started your real estate investing career in California. Tell me about how that went and how things have changed.
Well, this started for me in about 1978. And I'll go through this really quick because we have quite a ground to cover. But basically, a friend of mine that his family sold 120 acres to Chappelle in Castro Valley in the early 80s. And at that time, he was telling me, my friend, who I went to high school with, he says, you need to buy this other property up on the hill because he says, we own this 220 acres next door and it's going to get built. And it was going to have 165 houses. Well, little did they know, Chappelle bought the property and brought it to like 450 houses.
Right.
Wow.
Which is now Palomares Hills.
Which is Palomares Hills. But anyway, so I did buy that property. It was an acre of land. It didn't perk. I tried to get it to perk. It didn't perk. I held it for 13 years, and I ended up selling it. I bought it for $37,000 on a land that didn't have water, so there was no well and no perk. I sold it for $225,000
Wow.
13 years later because water came up the hill to that project, and they brought sewer up to that project. So all of a sudden, this worthless piece of property became, but it did have a glimpse of the bay also. But
Nice.
Good story. And then later on, I ended up reading about an auction in Martinez, and it said 160 acres Moraga for sale today on the courthouse steps.
Wow.
And I thought, well, wow, that would be kind of interesting.
That was in Moraga.
And this was in Moraga. The property was in Moraga, but the courthouse steps. So I showed up. I had $4,000 in my pocket. And I thought, you know what? If I could steal the property, I don't even know what it looks like, but I'm familiar with that area because I was raised in the backside of Castro Valley.
Yeah, beautiful area.
Kind of adjoined. So it ended up, I bought the property the first go around for $40,000. Unbelievable, 160 acres. But I was young. You have to learn the hard way. It's not the easy way. And the auctioneer said, if this doesn't satisfy what the court needs because of this auction for medical bills, then the court has the right to reopen the property. 2 years later, I had a time to go get an attorney and find out what the delinquency was and pay it. 2 years later,
Incredible.
the property had been clouded over. They were trying not to sell the property, and they messed it up for the county. They finally got through all that. It reopened. I ended up having to rebuy the property, but I did sell that property that I just told you about for $220,000. I had to bid against a couple of people from Asia, and back then China was coming back, buying properties in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then there was a neighbor with the heliport, and he's saying, walking up and down, saying, I'm buying it. Well, I closed on that property for $411,000, 10 times what I bought it for the first time.
Incredible.
But I had all my ducks lined up. So that's my real estate story for that. Then we invested in some California a duplex and multiple family properties and had rentals over the 30 years.
Got it.
Well,
So
I got to
what-
know. I just got to know
Go ahead.
do you still have that land or did you sell it? Did you develop
Well, I sold it for 2.1, and
Oh.
yeah, that was 20 years later. And I bought the house we live on now, which is in Danville now. It's on 18 acres.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
Whoa, beautiful. Beautiful area,
So
too.
it was an interesting move and a big, a big play, but that was a lot of fun to be able to have a story like that. Not too many.
Yeah, that's a great story.
Take
And
that
what
kind
was
of
your
risk.
career at the time?
I started out as a commercial beekeeper, and I did that for 15 years up until 1980, 88.
Wow.
Okay.
89, excuse me. And then after that, I got into Christmas trees, flowers, and pumpkins. And you know my shop, where you used to do all your things at the hotel on Contra Costa Boulevard, Deb's Flower Market. That was our shop.
Amazing.
That was our shop. So
Wow.
anyway,
Wow.
for
So you
25
took
years, and I
you
sold.
took revenue from there, took cash flow from there, and would invest in real estate.
Yes, yes. So then
Why? What was your reasoning for the investing in real estate outside of your business?
You know, the cash flow. I watched, you know, as properties go up in value, also you have, if you keep your credit good, then you have the ability to borrow against those other properties. So it seemed like that, you know, during the early 2000s and mid 2000s, before the crash, I mean, all you had to do is sign your name. You get any amount of money you want practically. So, you know, we bought a few extra houses and other properties.
Smart.
And then with Janet, you know, I married Janet in 2011. And so we've kind of migrated and helped each other. She's had a couple of rentals and a family rental since 1950.
Yeah, tell us about that, Shannon. I want to hear about your real estate
It was a
background.
home that my parents came out to California from Texas, and my dad started a small business in San Leandro. It's actually still there, called Brick and Wheel Center, corner of Washington and Williams Avenue. And so anyway, it was a family home that we lived in. And whenever we decided to move out to San Ramon in 1969, which was very, very rural San Ramon back then.
Yeah, it's just orchards.
Yeah. And so, we kept that home. And so anyway, it's something that's been in the family since 1950.
Wow.
Before I was even born, or my sister either. So anyway, so I still have that home, and then another home that I raised my children in Castro Valley, up in the hills.
And you've turned those into rentals.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So you had this property up until 2020, and then COVID hit, and then we saw a lot of changes. The California tenants free rent order. Then what? Did you decide to keep buying in California? Or?
Janet decided she was going to ride it out, and I had a tenant that I had been very loyal to. She raised 2 drug babies, adopted them. She's with me for over 10 years.
Wow.
And, you know, she had her ups and downs. She was self-employed. I don't know exactly why. She had some pitfalls in business, but through flipping houses. And so it ended up that she got behind, and she'd play catch up and get behind. And it was typical. So I let it ride. 2019 came, and it was not a good year. She did play catch up. January 1st, 2020, she's behind. February comes, she says, I'm going to make the payment by February 22nd. For February, it didn't come.
Mm-hmm.
Then all of a sudden, we're at March 15th, and I'm serving her papers and trying to get this eviction started, letting her know that, you know, we're at the bottom line. I can't carry you. Well, that all fell apart. It ended up bringing it all the way up to 2021, January. For 15 months, she never made a payment.
Oh, man.
I had to make the taxes. I had to pay her water bill. We have no beefs. You know, I couldn't get in her face about anything. I just say, you know, it'd be nice if you could contribute. The 25% she never paid, that the governor said that they were going to pay.
Wow.
We ended up with a Zoom hearing with a judge about an eviction hearing. I hired a company. For some reason, a box got checked in the application, but basically was stating that I was committing some sort of fraud in filing this application. And if I didn't rescind the order, what was going to happen is I was going to have to pay her $500 an hour attorney that she hired.
Oh, goodness.
She got behind me. She got behind in up to $30,000 in back rent.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
And so I have a great tenant downstairs, but the way it is that if it's a duplex, you can't ask the tenant to move if the buyer wants to move in. If it's a single family, they can't. So we were trying to look at all the different avenues, and finally I realized the only way I can do it is plant a for sale sign in the front. So that's what I did.
Is to what?
I planted a for sale sign out in front of
Got
the
it.
house.
After that eviction.
After that, I had to throw it out. That cost me like $1,800 to
Wow.
file and do all the paperwork and all the other expense. And I saw I wasn't going to go anywhere. And I bought the property in, I believe, 2000. So I had a lot of equity in it.
Right.
And there's something else I need to cover about a 1031 exchange on that really quick. But after. This is going to save everybody a big headache.
Thank you.
As you go through, you have to live and learn. I've done a lot of 1031 exchanges over the years.
hmm
Anyway, I ended up selling the property and
In March.
in March this year, and we're in the process. We started in December, and we flew to Florida because I had sold other property in Concord and
In August. Last
And
year.
so I was preparing myself to move our rental income out of state. And so that's what we did. We went to Florida. We bought 2 houses from Estero and then a house independently in Palm Bay.
So the 2 houses are in Southwest Florida in the Port Charlotte, North Port area.
Great.
And then one of them is on what they call the Space Coast, just below Melbourne and Palm Bay.
Yep.
So that's on the Atlantic side.
And you have property management handling that?
Only on the 2
On the Southwest, on the Gulf side.
on the Gulf side.
Yeah, his cousin lives in Melbourne, and so he's helping us
It's 3
out.
miles
Okay.
from their business.
Good. So
They have
yeah, a different form of property management, but you have someone.
Yeah,
Good
family.
for
So
you.
Then we ended up buying 3 houses in Indiana.
Right. And
And-
that's where my daughter and grandkids live, in the
Perfect.
Indianapolis area. So one is in Avon, Indiana, just due west of Indianapolis, and 2 are in Greenwood, which are due south of Indianapolis.
Okay.
So those
And
just
so
close.
what was your wisdom around the 1031 exchange?
Okay, well, here's what it is. When you get your document and you sell a property, I sold my property, and I'll give you the exact numbers. I sold it for $740,000. All
Okay.
right. I had a loan on it for $209,000.
hmm
So when you get your documents from your 1031 exchange, it shows how much cash that you get. 1 second. So it posts the actual amount that the receiver in the 1031 holds.
hmm
And it's in a letter,
Which is obviously less the loan amount.
and it's less
and-
the
and
loan amount.
fees. All the
So you get to take off the real estate fees and all the documentation fees, recording and all that.
Hmm.
So that comes out, and what's left is what you get from the sale. You don't get to touch it. The facilitator holds it until you find other properties. You have 45 days to explain what properties you're thinking of buying, and you have up to 180 days to close. Well, nowadays, properties are not closing in 180 days. They need to close in 30 days or 20 days or 40 days, 60, right around there. It's not, they don't give you a lot of time. These buyers
Yeah,
are
because
forced
they
to
can.
step up to the plate with cash and buy and close. So it ended up that we get this letter, and I'm seeing that I've got $500,000 that I have to go purchase other properties with. That's not true. The actual amount is the amount of the sale, which is the full $740,000.
less the fees.
Less the fees. So it came out to $209,000 above the 500 that I still had to come up and spend at other locations. So what that means is I only got 500 in cash. So I'm 209,000 short. Where's that money going to come from? Thin air?
Yeah.
It's got to either come out of my pocket, or it means I have to get a loan on property.
Yeah.
And it isn't stated in the letter. So I didn't know this until 3 days before the 45 days were up. I'd already listed like 5 properties.
Wow.
But it ended up that we were able to close on 3, and the others, it just ended up that I didn't have enough time to make other offers on other properties because of this crazy time. The one in Indiana, and here's another key. You're going to love this. Okay. What ended up happening is on the property in Indiana, in Greenwood, is that the agent calls me and he says, Joel, you want to make an offer on this house? And I said, yeah, let's do it. And he says, well, the listing price is $175. It's a 4.2, and no, it's a 3.2, and he says that prices are starting to skyrocket here. Stuff's going $15,000 to $19,000 higher. Wow. So in my head, I'm thinking, okay, well, I got a 1031. I'm a long hold, and so I'm going to keep this property for quite a while, so I can afford to pay a little more because I got this 1031. I got to spend the money anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But so here it is. He says to me, "Do you want to do an escalation clause?" And I said, I've heard that term before, but I really can't remember what it is. And he explained it, and I'll explain it to you. This escalation clause means that my original thought in my head is the highest I'll go for this property is $205,000 from 175. In California, I probably have still missed it anyway. But anyway, so I'm telling him this, and he said, well, do you want to do an escalation clause? And I said, well, what is it? He explained it. He said, it's like this. If whatever the last bid is, if yours is $1,000 higher, you're going to get the property. And I thought, you know what? That sounds pretty good. Let's do it. There was 16 offers on that property.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
We got it. Exactly. We got it. Well, first we got was it an email or a text, Janet? About we lost.
It was a test.
I think it was a test. Thank you for your offer on this property. Gave the address. You've been outbid. I'm going, oh, bummer. And now I got to really go hunt because my days are expiring. My 45 days are expiring. I mean, I didn't have to close in this time, but I did have to identify. And so
10 minutes later,
I get a call from the agent. He says, guess what? You won. I go, won what? He says, you got the property. I go,
wow.
Well, this is great. How? He says, there were 16 offers and your escalation clause pushed it over 1,000. And I said, how much?
Amazing. 1,000 more than the highest one from the highest bid?
191.
So the highest bid, except for Joel's, was 190. And with the escalation clause, that put it at 191.
191. Oh, wow.
That one.
Wow. So you don't have to pay the taxes on that one.
Yep. So in my head, I was thinking 205. The agent saved me $14,000 is what I'm getting.
That's amazing.
Wow.
That's great. That's great
Good for
advice.
you. That is great.
Yeah.
So we took that 14, we put another 12 in it. We put in all hardwood floors, ripped out the flooring, had it repainted, hung some ceiling fans, put in the garden in the back. I'm a gardener. I love to garden. So I put in a big veggie garden in the back for the future tenants that are going to move in to give them an idea, and ripped out some trees in the front. Even though I had an HOA, there was mold growing on the side of the building and it had some dry rot. So we got all that changed out, all for $12,000. So
fantastic.
I'm still into it. As far as I'm concerned, long-term hold, we got a house ready to go.
Great.
Amazing. Are you going to be buying more properties or what's your
we've got 10 now. And I think that's, I don't want to cut into my garden time.
Got it. Yep.
So,
balance.
So overall, now that you've invested out of state and you've invested in state for a long time, what would you say? What advice would you give to others? Has it actually improved your cash flow, or has it turned out to be harder for you?
Right now, because we have properties that are not rented, because we're still in transition. One of the sale options was on the other property in Greenwood is that and this is thinking out of the box, but the person needed at least 3 months to move out.
Yep.
And so I said, okay, we'll give you 3 free months. No rent.
She was a single mom with 3 boys.
Oh, wow.
So she could use a little help.
That's a give.
Wow.
And so, generosity, it comes back.
It sure does.
So we were just looking at it that she really needs to get kind of settled because school's starting, in August there.
Yeah.
So we thought that time frame would work well for her too.
Very sweet. Wow. A lot of
Yeah.
times people will charge lease back or
Oh,
rent.
absolutely.
Well, at that point, there is a leverage point at the end of the 3 months that once that she gets to that point, I already have a lease signed
Mm-hmm.
on the sale of escrow that states that, come August 8th, it's 10 days before that, that she needs to send a property deposit for just like a renter and cover those bases, because it just doesn't happen tomorrow that you're going to get them to sign a lease after.
Great. Just get a
They
good
could
lead
become
time.
a squatter after that. Not
Right.
in Indiana.
Yeah. There's some risk
but in-
there.
Exactly. In California, they could become a squatter after they sell you the house.
Yeah.
They could own the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, we get free rent. Thank you, Lucy.
All right. Well, it's really been a pleasure to have you on here. Is there
Yeah.
any
Thanks
final
for sharing
question?
your story. I guess my last question is just something just around why did you choose real estate? Why real estate? There's so many different investment options out there. What was the draw to real estate for you guys?
For me, over the time, I've tried investing in other things like the stock market. And it's like, here's my money. Go do with what you're going to want with it. And I hope I get something back. And I've never made gains.
Okay.
With real estate, I'm always looking for a property that, like when I bought the duplex, the original rents were $600 and $800.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at it and I'm telling the agent, we got to get an offer in this. This is way below market for this duplex. They were 1,300 square feet each. And I put carports into garages with garage doors and remotes, put that on there. All of a sudden we had people that wanted to stay. And the rents actually went up over the years. I was getting 2010 on one
Yep.
and 2025 on the other. Just to show you that, below market is one thing, and you kind of want to watch for that, to what other people are paying, and the potential to have an opportunity to have a renter that's going to give you some cash.
Got it. So it sounds like part of your answer is that you have more control over the asset.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Instead of someone
You're
else.
always looking
controlling
for a property that doesn't need a whole lot of work.
Yeah.
Or you can make it deferred work. I didn't tell you about this. This is sent from heaven. But the property that I sold, the duplex, I listed it at $820,000, and I sold the property for $740,000. There was bidders. The buyer said, we'll take it with the tenant in it. And you know what that means, a big headache.
it. Oh, wow.
And on top of it, then after they did all their inspections, I put in the clause, seller will not do any repairs or improvements.
Mm-hmm.
And so they signed it. Anyway, it ended up, we did the inspections, and with all the inspections and the deferred maintenance, it came to $63,000, plus a tenant that doesn't pay. Does it sound like, why would you buy it? That got sent from heaven.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
closed on it at $740,000, and they sent me an addendum that said, would you give us $10,000 off the purchase price? And I said, I'll pay for the inspection.
Wow.
So they closed.
Yeah. Some people just want it. Yeah.
Yeah.
They see
Well, they could see that, the value of the rents there are probably closer to $2,800 now, and I'm getting
once you get the rent. Yeah.
Exactly. So they could see the value in the future.
Yeah.
And so anyway.
Great stuff. All right. Well, Janet and Joel, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom here on the
Yeah.
RealWealth.
Kathy and Rich.
Yep. Well, thank you for, what the package that you've put together. We're learning how the whole system works, and we've been involved. We've flown 3 times across the U.S. during COVID to go buy these houses.
Wow.
We're aggressive. I mean, it pretty much scrambled your head a few times getting properties mixed up and different things happening. But, you are going to make some mistakes, which we have. But,
Yeah,
that's a whole
totally.
nother story.
Yep. It's part of the process.
And I've listened to yours over the years, Kathy and Rich, about some of the things that you guys got involved in. And, yep, it's a learning experience.
Yeah.
Oh, are you talking about that Nicaragua condo?
Oh, man.
Never sign a contract when you've had 2 glasses of wine. All right.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Thank you so much for joining us here. And thank you all for listening. You can get access to hundreds of free webinars at realwealthshow.com, where you can learn some of these great techniques that you got to hear about today.
You
Yeah.
betcha.
All
All
right.
right. Good luck, you guys.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are provided for informational purposes only and should not be construed as an offer to buy or sell any securities or to make or consider any investment or course of action. For more information, go to realwealthshow.com.